Oh boy, it's day 14. Let's start with a question, which is what this video is really about. Why should the buyer buy from you? Think about that question and watch till the end so you get the entire answer right after this. So, did you think about the question? What drives the prospect to buy from you? Did your mind immediately leap to thinking about your product's benefits and features? Did you think about how awesome you, your product, and company are? Well, all of those answers are about you. Now stay with me and do this exercise. Grab paper and pen. Go do it now. Next, write out who is your buyer. If you're struggling to answer, give some thought to this question. It's so important to know who your buyer is. You got to know, what is the buyer like? Does the buyer follow sports or maybe a music fan? Does the buyer have a family? You get the idea. When you know these things, you know your buyer on a deeper level other than someone else to sell your product to. And when you know your buyer on a deeper level, you'll discover it's easier to connect with the buyer. And isn't connection what it's all about? That's what humans want, right? You know this. When you connect with the buyer, it's easier to slip into the buyer's shoes and discover deeper problems and issues that he may or may not know. Connecting with the buyer beyond selling them something brings the buyer's defenses down and trust begins to build. Because keep this in mind, every buyer goes into a buying situation with a plan, especially if the purchase is a high-ticket value. I mean, take you for example. When you're ready to buy a new car, don't you generally have a plan? That's a lot of money to spend. Think through this with me. If the buyer doesn't know you, the buyer probably doesn't trust you either. And if the buyer doesn't trust you, then they will most definitely follow their buying plan and they're not going to reveal it to you. So when you ask the buyer, can you explain your buying process for a product like mine? Well, if the buyer trusts you, you'll get a straightforward answer. This is why it's important to know your buyer, or at the very least, you've written out what your buyer looks like, the type of business and business struggles the buyer probably faces. Even know the age group, education level, and geographic location of your buyers. How can you effectively sell and market to the buyer when you can't answer these simple questions? Write out a snapshot of your buyer. Go back and answer the questions I brought up in this video. Get a real idea who that ideal buyer is. When the buyer knows you understand him or her, when the buyer knows you have his or her best interest, when the buyer knows your solutions make sense for their problems, when the buyer trusts you, then the buyer will buy from you. Now notice, I never mentioned having the right price. In a few days, on day 16, you'll learn how to eliminate wishy-washy answers from the buyer. But tomorrow, day 15, is a doozy of a video. Don't miss it. And remember, sales is a journey, not a quick trip around the block. Bye-bye.